Good morning. Morning Musings by Melinda. Gosh, it's nice to be back home. We loved it in Texas, but there's no place like home. We had a great time though, talked to lots of people, and we're able to help lots of people, but it's good to get back here. I will be leaving for California though, October 8th, I believe, for a couple of days. I think we're pretty full, almost full in LA, and a few spots left in San Diego. So definitely, if you're in California and want to see me personally, I'm not going to be doing an event this time, but if you want to see me in person, please give Izzy a call. So, I wanted to talk to you about, is our failures our wins, really? And this is for you, Jenny Kehoe. And I thought, what's the best way to teach this? Because, gosh, there have been so many failures in my life that have led to such positive things. So I thought I'd tell you the story of when I was young. I married my high school sweetheart, so to speak. We really didn't get together till after high school, but I knew of him in high school. And so we got married before he was going to be in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Naval Hospital. We're talking just right around the end of the Vietnam War. And so we got married before I turned 19. I had my first child before I turned 19. And actually, I had 2 more kids with him before the marriage fell apart. In fact, the marriage fell apart when my daughter was an infant. He had found a relationship with somebody at work, and I didn't think that was a tolerable situation for me. So I actually left him when my daughter was 6 weeks old. One of my kids was 2, the other one was 8. And I had no education. I was a waitress in a restaurant, so I struggled for a couple of years. And my sister Lisa lived in Louisville, Kentucky, and she invited me to move to Louisville, Kentucky, and so she could help me out. But when I got to Louisville, my brother-in-law owned a jewelry store at the time and started working for my brother-in-law. I realized that too was going to be a dead-end job for me. So I decided that I would quit that waitress graveyard shift at Denny's and try to put myself through college during the day with 3 kids in tow. And believe me, it was very challenging, but it's just to give you the background. On a Christmas Eve, I was making Christmas Eve dinner. I had forgotten an ingredient. I stuck money in my jeans pocket. I stuck my little girl in the car seat. I left my 2 boys at home. By this time, McKinnon was around 4. Jason was in 7th grade. And so leaving them home for a little bit while I ran to the store didn't hurt anything. And on my way out of the store, a siren behind me came, and policeman pulled me over, and he told me that I had a stolen vehicle. Well, my car was not stolen. It had New York tags on it, but I didn't have my license and I didn't have my registration because I didn't grab my purse. The store was like right down the block, and I had just stuck money in my jeans, and he scared me. He had other police people come. I was surrounded. They searched my car. It was really a nightmare. It scared me. It scared my little girl. They threatened to take her. My little girl is now 38 years old. But anyway, long story short, he winked at me, gave me his name and number, and said, hey, if you call me, I'm going to forget about the whole thing. So when I got home, I was pretty scared. I called my parents. I talked to my father. I told him what happened, and he said to me, see if there is a lawyer open the day after Christmas. Christmas Eve was on a Wednesday evening. Christmas Day was on a Thursday. So I called around for a lawyer on a Friday. Long story short, I was scared. The policeman, of course, I gave him my address, was riding back and forth in front of my home, and I was really scared. So what happened was that my father decided to retire early and moved to Louisville, Kentucky to get me through that semester of school. And then I got a job offer back in New York. So he stayed long enough to get me back to New York and to get settled. I can still remember being in the U-Haul truck, dragging a car behind us. Remember, I didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, to tell you the truth. And so I'm double clutching this truck up a hill, and I can hear my father's voice saying to me, "It's okay, you got this, you got this." And all the kids in the cab of the truck and a dog. And it was a pretty harrowing trip from Louisville back to upstate New York, Vestal, New York, where I live. Well, my father was going to stay with us for a week or two, and one of the kids accidentally locked us out of the apartment where we were, so my father decided that he would climb up a ladder, go through the window, and let us in. And what he did was he fell from the ladder. He fell from the ladder and he broke his pelvic bone. And so he ended up having to stay with me. I had to get a hospital bed from the VA because the bedrooms were upstairs and he couldn't get upstairs, and have him recuperate in a hospital bed in the middle of the living room of this apartment while I was working, leaving my 4-year-old child. By this time, McKinnon was in grade school, to help him with getting him drinks, and I pack a lunch and put drinks out on the counter for her. Now, why am I telling you all of this story? It's because after he got well and he went back to Florida, he was diagnosed with aplastic anemia, and he died shortly thereafter. So I have thanked God every day for that policeman that stopped me in Louisville, Kentucky, and arrested me for a stolen vehicle, which of course wasn't stolen. He was trying to set me up to, I guess, date him. And I wouldn't change that experience in the world, nor would I exchange the experience of showing myself how strong-minded, how singularly focused, how I was able to balance 3 kids, college and working, graveyard shift at Denny's. Would I do it all over again if I had to? Yes. Did it show me that I had a strength of character and an ability to move forward in ways that I didn't know I had it in me? Absolutely, yes. Am I grateful that I was able to spend that time with my dad, like for a long time? Like it ended up being maybe 6 months, 8 months with my dad, all in all. And, you know, I really didn't know my dad. Remember, I'm a child of the 50s, and in those days, dads worked and did other things. So I got to know him really, really well during that time. It was just simply awesome. So I say to you, those of you who are struggling with something, just put one foot in front of the other and trust in the universe. Do what you've got to do, because there may be something going on that you don't recognize. You could be building attributes of your character. You could look back on your situation and be grateful for whatever it is that's happening. The worst thing that you can do is bitch, moan, whine, and be a victim to it. I must tell you, I was not a victim to this. I was scared, but I was not a victim. I think that I have always put one foot in front of the other. In fact, one time I had a conversation with Spirit and asked them, why me? Why do you guys talk to me? And they said, because you're never a victim to anything. And this is back in the day when I started working with Spirit, which was in my 30s. And as you know, I'm now in my mid-60s. The veil is a little bit thinner now, and we have a lot of people talking to Spirit in ways that I don't recognize and feels unfamiliar and kind of makes me out of sorts and maybe puts me in judgment, which I've got to wrap my head around and stop being such a brat about. But, you know, I think that you all need to understand that everything that you're going through is for purposefulness. As long as you trust in your higher power and that you've got fortitude and grit and you trust in God, it'll end up being okay. And you'll go back to looking at whatever you're going through and say, wow, that was really great. It wasn't terrible at all. So that's for you, Jenny Kehoe, and some of the other people who've been saying, how do I get through this? I'm miserable. I'm unhappy. I can't do it. I can't spend one more day. You can. You really can. So just understand that anything that has with it a challenge is a beautiful experience to enlighten your soul. Have a great day.